I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us a return guest. He's a former CIA officer. He wrote this book about 5 years ago, and the stuff he brought up in it, Kevin Shipp, of course, it's a spoiler alert. I'm giving it away from the Company of Shadows. Things he was talking about in the deep state and the shadow government are coming true now, and he is back to talk about James Clapper and John Brennan. It looks like he's self-imploding and going crazy on television. Kevin Shipp, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Hey, thank you, Greg. It's great to be back with you again.
Yes, you have very high ranking security clearance. When you were at the CIA, you protected the director of the CIA, George Tenet. Is that right?
No, it was William Casey at the time.
William Casey. So Willie Casey at the time. So you had a high enough clearance to stand in the same room with him while he was talking to all kinds of different people because you had to protect him. That said, I want to talk about Brennan and John Brennan. The left wanted his head on a pike when he was spying on the Senate in 2014. And now they're like, oh no, this is attacking free speech in America. What's going on with Brennan? He's called former CIA director John Brennan. He's called Donald Trump a traitor. He said what he did with Russia's a treason. He is making implications that there accusations that Putin has something on him. That he's selling out the country. I mean, just one thing after another. It's a long list. What's going on with John Brennan? Why is he doing that?
Well, John Brennan is a political hack, and sometimes I wonder if he's not the brightest candle in the pub, because when he came out and accused Trump of treason, that's a very, very high bar. You have to be co-conspiring with the enemy to overthrow the U.S. government. So for him to say that was absolutely ridiculous. Now, I understand he's walked that back because of the heat that he took, but why in the world would a former CIA director say something that inflammatory? Well, it's because he wants to see Trump go, because it's very possible that Brennan himself may be indicted for this soft coup.
And the media will not admit that they used phony documents, phony made-up stuff that the opposing party, Hillary Clinton and the DNC, paid for to apply fraudulently for FISA warrants. How is this even legitimate in any way, shape, or form? The Mueller investigation and this, what the president, I think, aptly describes as a witch hunt.
Well, it all started from the fake dossier, which led eventually to the appointment of Mueller. So the entire foundation of the thing is based on a falsity. And we know the mainstream media is not interested in the news. They have, from their editors on down and their corporate owners, an objective, in this case, to remove Donald Trump because he stands against everything that they are, the left, or the dark left, as I call it. And Trump is actually confronting the shadow government and deep state. He's got them shaking. The news media, which promotes a lot of these really super leftist things, he's got them shaking. So they are intentionally, on purpose, blocking the news and deleting the news about things like this soft coup, the dossier, and other things.
Would you say that they are co-conspirators? Janice says they're let's just call them what they are, co-conspirators. Would you say that this is actually real life co-conspirators in this the soft coup?
I would say yes, they are co-conspirators because they have reported against the president using the soft coup to make it look like it's legitimate. Their editors know better than this, and they're doing this intentionally on purpose. They covered up Hillary Clinton's obstruction of justice and violation of the espionage laws. They covered that up. They covered up the FBI false FISA affidavits. So they are complicit in this. There's no question about it.
When you look at what's going on with the news media, do you think that when we do come down to indictments, and you think they're coming, do you think there are people in the media that are going to be indicted with this? Do you think they're actually going to have email strings between, the Justice Department and the Hillary Clinton campaign and the FBI and the CIA? Actually, people there that are going to be indicted for this?
Well, they actually have email messages from FBI officials communicating with the mainstream media and arranging the mainstream media's reporting. That communication has already been going on. I don't think any of the editors of the news media or their reporters are going to be indicted just because of the wall of freedom of the press. And to go after these editors and reporters would kind of break through that wall. I don't think they're going to go there at all.
But do you think they're going to indict the people that not only just Brennan, but he's thinking about pulling the security clearances of fired FBI director and his lieutenant, Comey and McCabe? There's all kinds of other Strzok, he's out the door. Lisa Page, Bruce Orr, who's at the number 4, been demoted a couple times. Are all these people? They're the ones that they're going to go and indict as well with the Brennan? You think?
Well, they should be indicted because the evidence is there. I understand the next revocation of clearance is going to be probably Bruce Orr because he crafted the fake dossier with Christopher Steele, and he may even have written the thing. Excuse me. So his.
Oh, wait. That's news. Hold on. You're telling me news. They have. You're saying that that Christopher Steele wasn't the architect of that dossier.
Yeah, it looks like that. After the FBI supposedly fired Christopher Steele, Bruce Orr had at least 70 communications back and forth talking about the firewall's still there to protect us, and recent accounts have shown that Bruce Orr either wrote the dossier with Christopher Steele or he wrote it himself in communication with Christopher Steele.
And that would make this a whole lot worse of a witch hunt than what anybody has even imagined. That the document didn't come from some outside source that they contracted. You're telling me the document came from the Department of Justice?
Yes. Oh, they coordinated it for sure. There's, as I mentioned, there's 70 emails back and forth between Steele and Bruce Orr crafting the dossier. So the FBI and the Department of Justice was intimately involved with the creation and publication of that dossier.
How is there even a Mueller investigation at this point? So you have the let me get this straight. This is mind-blowing. You have the Department of Justice basically being the lead writer on a phony document, which they later subcontract out, so he takes the blame or the responsibility for it, so it doesn't come back to the Department of Justice. That's the firewall, right?
That's right.
Okay,
yep.
So they don't want anything to do with it because they know it's big trouble. They'd be in big legal trouble for doing that. And then they take that same document and they fraudulently apply for FISA warrants to spy on Trump and his campaign. Is that right?
That's correct, and they even went farther than that. The FBI and CIA counterintelligence placed an informant agent in the Trump campaign. And eventually they set up the meeting with Papadopoulos, which was a clear setup through a CIA asset named Stephen Halper. So this whole thing was an op from the very beginning to try to stop Trump and bring him down if he was elected.
What should happen to these people? I mean, I want to get more into the media because it's stunning to me that day after day, week after week, they're just passing on the biggest story ever. I mean, the public is in the total dark. They actually think Donald Trump is some sort of Russian collusion, double agent, puppet of Putin. That's what they think because of the mainstream press. I mean, the mainstream press is doing something pretty awful here.
Oh, without a doubt. They're violating their constitutional responsibility. They're putting out clear propaganda. And you've got a couple segments of the American people out there. Some are just low information people that sit on the couch and drink up CNN and MSNBC and think it's news. And that basically influences their thinking. Then you have other people that refuse to believe anything else because of their left-wing ideology. So they don't want to hear the evidence. They like the narrative. They hate Donald Trump and they want him removed. All that together, the mainstream media, CNN and MSNBC especially, are covering up the biggest scandal in the government in U.S. history.
What do you think? I don't think they're going to stop. I don't think they're all of a sudden going to say, "Oh, you're right, we missed the biggest story ever." I think when the indictments come, and first of all, let's talk about the indictments. You think indictments? You said on the last time, you said, "Oh, they're surely coming." Are we any closer to indictments coming?
I think they are coming. I think Brennan's in line for that. Comey's in line for that. McCabe's in line for that. Yes, I think they're coming, and you can see the beginning of that with the revocation of security clearances. John Brennan's significant increase in his diatribe against Donald Trump, I think, is an indication that he is afraid he's going to be indicted, and he knows the information is out there to indict him. So he's stepping up his rhetoric. So yes, I think indictments are going to be coming. Those are slow in going because they have to make sure that all the evidence is concrete enough to charge these people and make it bulletproof. I think that's what they're doing.
I want to just kind of get, because you are you are the former CIA officer, and you guys are you're involved in all kinds of intelligence operations, things like that. The mainstream media is not going to all of a sudden say, "Oh, we missed the biggest story ever. Now let's cover this thing fairly." They're going to make out like Donald Trump is the reincarnation of Stalin, are they not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the media still has, excuse me, Greg, I'm getting over allergies here. The media still has a gentleman's agreement with the CIA where they will not report negatively or do an investigative reporting on the CIA, and quid pro quo, the CIA will continue to give them information. Whenever the news media, Washington Post at the top of that list, whenever the news media quotes an anonymous source or sources, that is a CIA source. So the CIA is selectively feeding the news media what it wants them to publish, which goes out to the American people. That is an operation against the public and against the American people still today.
Didn't Donald Trump just put Gina Haspel in at the head of the CIA? Didn't they handpick a replacement for Mike Pompeo? I mean, how is that still going on that the CIA is involved in this counter coup against Donald Trump, or are they?
Well, when Mike Pompeo was put in place as the director of the CIA, I told my wife, I said, man, by all accounts, Pompeo's a good man, an ethical man. And I told my wife, he's not going to last long. They're either going to lie to him or he's got to get out of there. And information came out that the CIA was actually spying on its own director, Mike Pompeo. And sure enough, eventually Mike Pompeo requested to get out of there, and he was moved over to the Department of State, where he's doing a great job. So the CIA was actively working against their own director. I've witnessed operational directors lie to the director, him and now herself. So Gina Haspel remains to be tested, I think. And this program, this operation with the CIA and the news media, has been in place for a couple decades. It was supposedly terminated in 1976. It continued as a voluntary quid pro quo operation, which is what we see today. So Gina Haspel, I'm sure, certainly was not aware of this, and now, if she gets the full extent of the program, maybe she'll do something about it. We'll see. But it has existed up until now, and it continues to exist.
Could they start a civil war doing this?
Well, I think we're at the beginnings of the Civil War. You've kind of got the dark left, and then you've got the conservative people, the constitutionalists. Progressivism, one of its tenets is to change the Constitution, especially the First Amendment, and uproot traditional America. So you've got that group against the patriots, the conservatives, and it's boiling up to Antifa, getting violent. People are attacking cars because they have Trump stickers on. So there's a brewing civil war going on right now, and whatever happens in November could escalate that. But we're in the middle of a civil war where the news media is actually propagandizing the American people, which is shocking, and that's the extent to which they've gone, most notably CNN.
Are there people at CNN that are working for the CIA, that are actually on the payroll, that are assets of the CIA? I've heard some of the anchors over there are actually on the payroll of the CIA, and they do well because of it.
Anderson Cooper worked for the CIA as an intern some years back, and there have been, and this is what the CIA has been doing now, it will approach journalists, especially the foreign ones, and say, hey, you want to be a patriot, you want to serve your country, while you're over reporting on this story or domestically reporting on this story, why don't you work for us and collect intelligence? You'll be a great American, you'll be a CIA spy. And the person most of the time gets stars in their eyes, and they say, yeah, I'll do it. So the CIA makes them sign a secrecy oath. Now they're bound from ever talking about that again without facing criminal penalties. And so, yes, there are members of the news media. I know one in particular, a major news anchor, who I am absolutely convinced signed the CIA secrecy oath. And here is...
can you out him? Okay, who was that person?
Well, I don't want to say because... It would create a hornet's nest.
Is this person on television every night?
He used to be. He's since been removed. Now he's got his own podcast.
Really?
Now, and this is how you tell this individual and others. When is the last time, Greg, that you've seen an investigative journalist do any sort of digging with the CIA or any sort of investigative article at all on the CIA?
Not much.
No, they're afraid, for starters, and secondly, some of them are still signed up with the CIA to gather intelligence.
And you think and I'm gonna dive deep here on the media because these people can't be this stupid. It's not the reporters. The bosses are backing them to do the stuff they're doing. The bosses, Jeff Zucker, is backing Jim Acosta to do the things he's doing and to try to paint false narratives. And when are you going to stop attacking the press? They're not the press, they're the propaganda. But you're saying that the mainstream media, they're not stupid. They know this is a soft coup. You're saying they know it. You don't have to convince them. They know it.
Oh, they know it. As a matter of fact,
how do you know that?
David Brock, who is CEO of Media Matters, which is a George Soros-funded organization, and Media Matters pumps information into the willing mainstream media, and they publish it. They're absolutely opposed to the Trump administration. 45-page memo was just leaked with David Brock meeting with the Zuckerberg, the CEO of Twitter and of Google, organizing a strategy for algorithms and digital trackers to track any sort of news that is pro-Trump. And Brock is asking for $40 million towards that effort. So there's evidence of a media coup right there. David Brock has formed, I think, 20 or 30 shell companies to make it difficult to track down what he's doing. But he's funded by George Soros, who obviously wants to see the end of U.S. sovereignty. So that has a huge effect on the mainstream media coming from Soros through Brock, Media Matters. They're now, and this is this is really difficult because this is the civil war I'm talking about. Now they have brought in Zuckerberg, Twitter, and Google as part of their media coup against the president of the United States. That memo just came out. It's 45 pages long, and it is now proven that that's what they are doing. This is social media propagandizing to people together with the mainstream media against the Trump administration.
How do you stop that? How do you fight that?
Well, you fight it the way that you're doing it, Greg. You have people on that know the evidence and the facts in these cases. You have people on. All the other media sites have people on. We have to educate, and that's kind of my humble mission. We have to educate the American people from all sides, all media outside the mainstream. The only way is in a constitutional government, which is beloved to all of us. The only way is to educate the American people so that they understand that this is a coup, they get fed up with it, and then they vote accordingly.
The mainstream press, you were talking about that they're involved, they're co-conspirators. They want to see the end, and you mentioned this, they want to see the end of American sovereignty. Let's talk about that for a minute. This is what they actually want. They don't want America to be America anymore.
No, they don't. No, they don't. And Soros has come out publicly, and he funds a lot of them and has a tremendous influence. Soros has come out publicly and said that he wants to destroy U.S. sovereignty. And one of the progressivism platforms, Hillary Clinton being the queen of progressivism, is basically the change of the current Constitution, eliminating it in its current form, or basically not eliminating, but changing certain things like the First Amendment to crack down on speech that progressivism doesn't like. In colleges and universities, they're teaching courses against the current government and constitutional structure of the United States, and this is a direct attack. And I got to tell you, whether you're secular or a person of faith, there's two things in the 12 years I've been researching this. There's two enemies that they're attacking. One is the Constitution. You know, they say it was crafted by a bunch of bigoted white men. They are attacking the Constitution. And two, their arch enemy is Christianity. That's their favorite target. They don't even touch radical Islam, but they beat up on Christianity, as does Hillary Clinton regularly, because the Constitution, and whether you're a Christian, a Jew, or whatever, and that's what's great about this country, is there's so many different faiths, but their attack is against Christianity and against the Constitution. Most of the founders adhered to Christianity. It is diametrically opposed to kind of the dark moral perversion that we're seeing, teaching kids in second grade transgender, that Johnny, you may be a girl. Planned Parenthood is funding that. Well, the one thing that stands in the way of that, of course, is Christianity. They want to destroy it. So those are their two primary targets. And you can see that by just looking at the news they publish and the evidence. They never publish anything about the Christian Holocaust going on over in the Middle East ever, because they don't care about that. And that is intentional.
These guys that are working against us. I mean, this comes down to some pretty dark stuff. I mean, I actually, just to back you up too, on Hillary Clinton's only interview, she said there are limits to the Second Amendment, and there are limits to the First. She said to Chris Wallace. Of course, he didn't question that at all, Chris Wallace.
That's right. That's right. And look what they're doing now just to prove that. Look how social media is now blocking speech. Look how the mainstream media is blocking speech. When's the last time you saw a CIA whistleblower? I prefer the title constitutionalist. But when's the last time you saw a CIA whistleblower on any of the mainstream media? That includes Fox News, but primarily CNN and MSNBC. They block people like that. They block that from happening.
Do they still have a lot of power, or do they realize they're losing power? Is this why they're making this panicked move to block everybody's speech before the 2018 midterm elections?
Absolutely. That's exactly what they're doing, because the alt media out there, the credible alt media, is having a tremendous effect, and they know it, and they're running scared, and they want to block that so that they can put Democrats in power in the November elections. And when they do that, then they'll have enough votes to vote for impeachment of Donald Trump. That is exactly what they're doing and what they're planning.
And then ask you, what is Donald Trump doing to stop that? What is the Trump administration doing to stop the voter fraud? Because they really don't talk about their ideas. Their ideas are universal basic income, higher taxes, taking away your speech rights, taking away your gun rights. I mean, this idiot poster child of imbecility, she's imbecilic, I should say, this Ocasio, Ortiz, whatever her name is, up in New York. These are the kind of candidates they run. And they have, so they have to cheat, don't they?
Oh, they don't have a good candidate because most intelligent people despise what they believe. And in this kind of moral perversion of America, abortion up to the 9th month, where they birth a baby's head and sever its spine with a scalpel at the 9th month. I mean, we all want freedom and choice in America, freedom from government, but this is something that they push that is absolutely horrendous. So this is the dark side, what these people believe, and it's diametrically opposed to the foundation of the Constitution. So they've got to attack that also. And Hillary Clinton and Cass Sunstein, the husband of Samantha Powers, the former UN ambassador, has come out publicly and stated, he teaches in a university, that the First Amendment needs to be rewritten.
Do these people realize that they're in trouble? Or are they that pompous that they think that we can get out of anything, we can beat the rap, he's not going to indict us? I mean, it just seems like they are pretty boisterous, pretty confident. What say you?
Well, they're that pompous. These people are the elite. They make 6 or more figures a year. They consider them above the so-called common man, and we used to call it Potomac fever, but they have an ideology that runs and motivates everything they do and everything they report. So this is who they are, and they've been groomed to be this way for years and years and years. Otherwise, they get fired. Any journalist that departs from this kind of dark ideology, any journalist that has the nerve, like Cheryl Atkins, to stand up against it, they get rid of them.
Well, she's not, you don't see much of her. I mean, I guess they shadow ban a lot of people.
Yeah, and Cheryl's got a great show on Sundays where she did an outstanding, just wrote a book on how the media is influenced. Excellent book I'd recommend to people. So she's written a great book about media's influence, and I think she has a Sunday show every Sunday where she gets into that. But she didn't fit the ideological mold. They actually bugged her computer and tried to totally shut her down.
Yep, they did. They sure did. So what are your predictions for what's going to happen? When is this going to unfold, the indictments before the midterms, or is it going to be after the midterms? I mean, a lot of people are just waiting. When's this going to happen? When is the hammer going to start dropping?
It'll be after the midterms. They don't want to make it look like they're trying to influence the election, so it's going to be after the midterms. And my concern is I'm very frustrated with Jeff Sessions because he has done nothing. And the main point is the evidence. He doesn't need to gather evidence. The evidence is already there. that Hillary Clinton violated multiple statutes under Title 18. She violated the espionage statute. She obstructed justice along with James Comey and bleach bit all her hard drives, erased them, deleted 30,000 subpoenaed emails, and then smashed all her Blackberries, and then lied to the FBI about it. So Jeff Sessions, the evidence is there to open up a criminal investigation, reopen the Hillary Clinton email case, and start investigating James Comey and others, which eventually resulted in the Mueller special counsel appointment. So the evidence is there, Greg. Sessions doesn't have to do anything but opening the reinvestigation. He hasn't done it. So I'm real frustrated with him right now because this should have been done months ago.
What about Huber and his quote-unquote kind of special counsel doing a parallel work with the Inspector General? What about him?
You talking about the current FBI director?
No, the Huber, the guy that Jeff Sessions appointed. His name is Huber. He's also working on criminal.
Oh yeah, I think the guy from Utah.
Yes, that's right, guy from Utah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's awful quiet over there on that end of it. Yeah. And also Horowitz, he's going another investigation, another report on the phony FISA applications. Is that going to be enough to finally open people's eyes or finally get the president to move on these indictments?
No, because Horowitz, it's already been documented, he lied to Congress about some of the things that he had found. And then when he wrote his report, he left out any indication of criminal activity on the part of Clinton, Comey, and others. Completely avoided that.
Wow.
And you have to remember, because I saw this with the CIA, an IG that works for the organization that it's investigating has a conflict of interest and will never challenge that investigation with serious criminal evidence. So the Horowitz report was watered down. It's ridiculous. Talked about bad judgment when it wasn't bad judgment. It was intentional criminal activity in violation of the U.S. Code Title 18. So that is all there. That is all documented. So whatever Hoover and from Utah Horowitz are doing, if it's anything like what Horowitz just did, it's going to go nowhere.
So I've also heard from some people that Jeff Sessions is really just working in the background, that he's just staying out of the way. He's not drawing a lot of fire. People like Rosenstein are drawing the fire, and he's working getting these sealed indictments lined up and people lined up and prosecutions ready to be lined up. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, that's what I said on another station about 6 months ago. That I work with the FBI on counterintelligence espionage cases, and the FBI agents I work with were outstanding. But when we got up and had a case that went to the senior levels of the FBI, that it was an officer that sat next to me doing this particular one, it went bad and the person killed themselves. We had done a thorough, my associate had done a thorough investigation, turned it over to the FBI. The FBI blew it. The person died. So what the FBI senior management did was leak a top secret case to the news media, blaming it on the CIA. That's the culture of the FBI going back 30 years. Protect the FBI at all costs. And that culture has been there. And even the FBI agents hate senior management. And I think many of them are really pleased with this stuff being exposed and coming out. So I think it's about time. It's time for the FBI to stop being a kind of Stasi with full authority to break down people's doors in the middle of the night with no-knock searches, and the person doesn't even know who's coming in with a gun. So this is good because their abuse of power is now open and in the public.
Any good news to report? Do you think the ship's going to be righted? Not to play on your last name, Kevin Ship, but do you think the ship is going to be righted? I mean, do you think we are winning? Are we at a stalemate? What's your appraisal about what's going on? If people want to know what's going on, are we going to lose the country?
Well, I think what is really heartening is there are millions and millions of constitutional patriots out there. They're quiet. When Trump ran for office, the left poked the bear, and the bear woke up, and Donald Trump got elected. those millions of Americans, that has increased to a large silent group of people. So this so-called blue wave that they're propagandizing, they're forgetting this huge population that is tired of these constitutional violations, tired of criminal activity on the part of senior officials, and they're just quietly waiting to go in the ballot box. So the good news, and I get messages from people, wonderful people, all the time, there is a patriotic movement rising up, has risen up against this dark left, and they are just waiting for the right thing to move. And of course, the elections will be that, and also getting out into the media about these things. So there's millions of people out there silently in the patriot constitutional cause.
And you're thinking, is it your sources or just your thinking that there won't be any indictments till after the 2018 midterms?
That's just my thinking based on past actions by administrations. They're always afraid of being accused of affecting the elections, and that's why I think it'll happen afterwards.
Of course, there's Donald Trump, who called Omarosa a dog, and she was a dog for what she did. What she did to him was pretty creepy, and now she's going over and trying to get to turn state's evidence to Mueller and give him, I don't know what, but the stupid meeting that was set up by the FBI, the thing with his son, or set up by the Democrats. I mean, this is and Brennan. It's unbelievable. Brennan, though, the whole thing with Brennan, you know Brennan, though. One last thing about Brennan. Brennan's not a nice guy, right? I mean, he was the chief of staff at one time for the CIA director, and you know him. Tell me about Brennan.
Well, Brennan was the chief of staff for George Tenet, and then his deputy executive officer, which in other words his right arm. It was George Tenet and John Brennan that put the seal on the case, the suit that I filed for the poisoning of my family. So I'm intimately familiar with Brennan's abuse of power. Tenet and Brennan used the state secret privilege to seal cases against the CIA more than any CIA director in history. So yes, I'm familiar with Brennan, and yes, I'm familiar with his tyrannical abuse of power with the CIA. Essentially, they sealed all the evidence I had collected, doctor's diagnosis, which, by the way, Greg, I've now posted on my website for people to see. Some of the blood tests, the environmental tests, and other things are now on my website that they tried to seal. So
no, back up just a minute. Hold on.
Sure.
You're telling me that the CIA tried to poison your family?
Yes, when after I exposed the vulnerability to our agents and the CIA was publicly embarrassed to the intelligence community, I was put on a classified CIA base. They ordered me to move my family into the house. And within 3 months, everybody was sick. My wife was bleeding out of her gums, her nose. She had bruises all over her body. She lost her short-term memory, and her headaches were so bad they had her on morphine. And the doctors, they said, it's some sort of toxin. We don't know what it is. I secretly flew my son to a well-known immunologist, and after 3 days of testing, he sat us down and said, Mr. Shipp, based on your son's immune system, it's the same as being exposed to a burst of radiation. So they had poisoned my entire family, so I decided to file suit and stand up against it, and that's when they issued a blacked out gag order. We didn't even know what was in it, and on and on and on it went. The evidence was so strong, a federal judge ordered the CIA to a mediated settlement in Washington, D.C., run by a former federal judge. We went through 4 hours of deliberation with the CIA legal team, and they agreed and signed the settlement agreement, which is also now on my website, signed the settle agreement, and that they would settle based on the evidence I presented. They would settle with us. 3 days later, the CIA, remember John Brennan, George Tenet, called my attorney and said, if Mr. Shipp doesn't accept a fraction of the settlement agreement, we're going to invoke the state secrets privilege and seal all the evidence. My response was not only no, but HE double toothpicks. No, you signed a settlement agreement, which is on my website now. That's proof. You signed a settlement agreement based on the evidence. You can't just walk away from that. Well, I think it's about a week later. Sure enough, they invoked the state secrets privilege, sealed all the evidence that I collected, even from Congress, and then threatened me with prison if I talked about the evidence to anyone.
Can we save the country, Kevin Shipp? Can we save the country?
Well, Greg, I think this is our last chance. Thank God Donald Trump's in office. If he wasn't, it would be over. We can. This is our last chance. We have the opportunity because millions of people, as I mentioned, are rising up. Yes, we can if we don't get off point. If we stay focused, keep educating people like you're doing en masse, and get people informed and to be a part of this constitutional movement. Yes, we can. We can turn it around. There's no doubt about that. But we have to keep focused, and we have to never, ever give up, because the dark side never gives up.
Okay. I got to tell you, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you you coming on and talking with us. There's some the bad news is the indictments is going to come after the 2018 midterms. That's what you think.
Yes.
The good news is they're coming, and you think they are coming.
I do. They have to come based on the evidence. Yes, I do. Yeah, I think they will.
And there's going to be a lot of people crying. I mean, this could kick off. The left is going to go crazy, and the newspapers are going to write stories that say Donald Trump is the new Stalin.
We'll reach the civil boiling point after that, yes, and then the violence is going to escalate. Social media is going to escalate their blocking, and we're going to be in a full blown cultural civil war.
You think that Trump wins the 2018? Well, he's not on the ballot, but his candidates are. You think he wins the 2018 midterms?
I think it's going to be a surprise to the people that say there's going to be a blue wave. I think a lot of Republicans are going to be reelected because of the number of motivated people out there. And of course, the Democrats' goal in trying to replace those seats is so they can get enough votes in the Senate to impeach Donald Trump. That's their whole goal. That's why it is so important that conservative constitutional people get out and vote, because what the Democrats want to do is replace those seats so they can vote and impeach Donald Trump. So people need to get out there and they need to vote and stop the left side of these things from getting in there and trying to remove Donald Trump.
Any of your sources talking about cracking down? I just had Eric Eggers on, who wrote the fabulous book, Fraud. It's how the left plans to steal the next election. He talked about all kinds of examples of voter fraud, election fraud. Are any of your sources getting back with you saying they have a plan to counter all this voter fraud?
They do. They're trying to counter it, but it's a monster. It's a monolith, and there's no doubt about it that the DNC uses and will use voter fraud to try to affect the election. But it is a obviously 50-state monolith that they have to address where this fraud is occurring. So for them to address that before the election, and I'm working with somebody who's trying to do that, for them to be able to pull off that kind of complex investigation and revelation, there's not enough time to do that.
But there's enough time to at least stop some of it, pick out some key areas and stop some of the wider, bigger frauds that are going on, right?
Yeah, there is, and they're working on that. The question is, is there enough time?
Kevin Shipp, the book is as relevant today as it was the day it came out 5 years ago. Some of the stuff you predicted in this book is coming true now. I'll give you a close-up here. It's on his website, fortheloveoffreedom.net. That's right, it's a .net.